there's freedom of speech, right? And whether what some people want to say, whether I want to hear it, whether others want to hear it, I think that there's hate speech, of course, but our country's built on the freedom to say even very stupid things.
Hey, it's Breaking Barriers, the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging podcast. We're here for real talk. We're not afraid to go there. And we want you to come away emboldened and energized to take action and make change.
We believe our diversity, our differences, when joined together by a common set of ideals, makes us stronger.
When I set out to help someone, it is my intention to do just that. I'm not trying to do anything other than meet somebody at their humanity.
Your world has changed, but your dreams shouldn't have to. That's why Kirkwood is your next best step. With affordable, flexible, and close-to-home options, now's a great time to start or finish your Kirkwood degree. Learn more at kirkwood.edu/findyourfuture. Displaced or discouraged at work? Kirkwood can help you learn a new skill or totally reinvent yourself for a brand new career. With so many flexible and affordable options, you can get back on track fast. Learn more at kirkwood.edu/findyourfuture.
All right, what's happening? What's happening, world? Welcome back again to another episode of Top Ranks Breaking Barriers, DEI&B podcast. We want to thank our 5-star presenting sponsor, Kirkwood Community College, as well as our silver sponsor, PG Cares. Thanks so much for your support. We are excited today. I'm your co-host, Anthony Arrington. I'm with my homeboy, Nick Ford. How are you, Nick?
I'm doing good, doing good.
We got online, we got our girl, we got our owner, Joy Briscoe. How are you, Joy?
Woo-hoo. Speaking of Kirkwood, it's been pointed out that I have on Kirkwood blue today.
You do. I'm wearing Kirkwood blue too for our listeners.
Our logo's got a little bit.
All right. Who do we got with us today, Nick? Who's the rock star with us today?
We're excited. It's our sponsor's president, Dr. Lori Sundberg. She is the 5th president of Kirkwood Community College and the first female to serve in that role. Dr. Sundberg is a first-generation college graduate, like me. Holds a doctorate of business administration and management from St. Ambrose University, another great school in the state of Iowa, as well as an MBA in marketing from Western Illinois University. We won't talk about that much because they swam against my son a while back. she
we can leave them off.
Yep, can't win them all. Received her BA from Knox College with a double major in economics and history. Prior to coming to Kirkwood, Dr. Sundberg served for 8 years as the president of Carl Sandburg College in Galesburg, Illinois. She was the 6th president there and the first graduate and female to lead that institution. She has more than 25 years in community college leadership. Dr. Sundberg was elected by her colleagues from across the country to serve on the AACC Board of Directors in 2013-2019. Welcome, Dr. Sundberg. We are very happy to have you join us today. So let's get at it. Let's chop it up.
I'm happy to be Kirkwood sponsoring too.
Yes. We are so appreciative of that.
And I'm glad you all have Kirkwood blue on.
That's right. That was the plan. Must have been a subliminal thing going on there.
It must have been. I love it.
Listen.
No, it really was subliminal, so.
Mine was intentional.
Yeah.
Ours too.
Yeah.
Nice wink, Joy.
So, first quick question. Why sponsor a podcast like this as the president of a community college?
Because I believe in breaking barriers. And so it was intriguing to me. Anthony serves on our foundation board, and so I've gotten to know him through that venue. And it was just something that I wanted Kirkwood to be a part of.
You know, Lori, by the way, do you like to be called Dr. Sundberg or Lori? We do what we want on this show. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, you can call me Lori.
All right. I feel better doing that. So along the line with Nick's question, you know, as I think about this, you know, you are a woman in a leadership role, first. You've had your own, obviously, experiences with discrimination or inequities in your life as a woman. But you're also a person in a position right now as a white female with power, privilege, and a platform. And I was telling Nick offline, you use that privilege to sponsor this show. Talk to me about how you value your privilege and how you use it. That was just an example, but we think about the space and we think about people in your role in academia or otherwise, but in positions of power that are of the majority, so to speak. And talk to me about how you feel about using your power and your platform and your privilege to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Well, here's the deal is I grew up with, my parents didn't graduate from high school. They both grew up in poverty. And, I think today they would probably both have been diagnosed with some type of reading disability. But that, of course, back then wasn't done. And so higher education changed my life. And I want to make sure that I share that, because literally it changed my life. It changed my family's life. So, someone said to me one time, what are you most proud of? And what I am most proud of is that I changed my family there, to where, we didn't have a high school education, right? They hadn't gone to college. And so now my nephew, I don't have my own children, but I have stepchildren. They went to college. And then my nephew, my brother's son, he went to college. And so now there's a legacy of college going that wasn't there before. So it changed in one generation. It changed a family dynamic. And so I know what higher education can do. It has a power to change lives and change families. And so I've never forgotten that. And so the fact that I have a platform now, I try to use it. I try to use it for good and to talk about what higher education can do for everybody, for women, for people of color, and the way that it can change lives. And so that's why this podcast was important, because it's talking about breaking barriers, and and those are barriers. Those are barriers to a different life.
Absolutely.
I love it because before everyone jumped on, me and you were having this moment of kind of even talking about, the cost of that, right? Like as a woman with a family, and now you're looking at retirement. And so even from the lens of why you chose the area that you did and what you've been able to do in that area, are there things that you feel like you had to give up, or that it cost you to be able to build and kind of change your family's even trajectory and actually make the impact that you're making in a community?
Oh, sure. I think that women in particular struggle with, if you have a job like this or a job that's demanding, there's a struggle because you feel like you're not there for your family. And then on the other hand, then if you're doing this, then you have this ambition or this desire to do something else. And at the same time, there's this competing feeling. And I think that I'm not unique. I think every single woman who's in the workforce feels this at some degree. And so, and that's not to say that men don't feel it. I just don't identify it that way, right? I mean, I know my experience, and I don't try to put upon like what other people, what their experience might be, but that's my experience. And so, we were talking earlier. I have missed a lot over the years, and I don't regret that. But I also feel like I try to have a good balance, but I do feel like it really is time to have some family time.
Yeah. I love that.
So I want to kind of pick up on what you said there about the word sacrifice, and we're talking about sacrifices and also lived experience. And you mentioning, in your role, you don't want to perceive that you understand how somebody else lives. When we segue that and we talk about what's happening legislatively in higher education, when we talk about the challenges that are being faced right now with institutions trying to teach history, particularly African-American history, part of that history is talking about those sacrifices and the challenges that people of color had to to get us where we are today in today's society. And there's challenges right now in higher education to try to minimize that history, minimize those painful sacrifices, which is what they were. How do you feel about that as a college leader? How do you feel about the legislation that's taking place? And what this is Anthony Arrington's opinion, just so we're clear, that what Anthony Arrington believes is the effort to suppress history and suppress those sacrifices. How do you feel about what's happening right now legislatively?
Sure. I think that's a huge challenge for us. There's also, I think, a little bit of a movement in terms of gender studies as well. And so the notion that you wouldn't teach, for example, women's literature, or you wouldn't teach African American history, any of those things, that's a challenge, because, and it's one that, I think we have to, I don't want to say fight back, because it's not a fight. It's a conversation, and it's about the importance of all voices in our history, and gender, as well as people of color, all those histories. I came from Galesburg, Illinois, and in Galesburg, we had a large Mexican community. They came in the 1920s and 30s, and there's been a documentary made. It's called The Boxcar People. And they came to work on the railroad, and they lived in boxcars. And you've seen it, yeah. And it's powerful. And one of my trustees on my Sandburg board, her parents lived in the boxcars when they came. And so that's a story that needs to be told. There's countless stories. When I was at Knox College, I took a course on African American history, and that was my first introduction to everything, that even like slavery and how it started and all of that. And I didn't know anything about that. And to think that I was in college before I started that, that's troubling. So I think it's something we have to keep talking about. I think we have to continue to talk about the importance of it. And there's a lot of stories that need to be told.
You mentioned that it's a challenge. Why do you think it's a challenge?
I'm kind of curious too, like in the role you're in, and we see that you asked Anthony, like the battle of higher education and education in general. How in your role are you able to fight that as well?
Here, we haven't had any like directives or any kind of legislation that has prohibited Kirkwood from doing what we do. And so we haven't faced anything here. We can continue to offer the same courses we've had before. We still have, the same conversations we had before. Why it's a challenge is because right now, politically, it is a political fireball right now. And it shouldn't be. There's nothing political about it, but it has been made to be political, and so that's why it's a challenge. And I think there's a lot of things right now that have been politicized that shouldn't have been, but they have, and so that makes it a challenge, because sometimes you can't have a conversation because it's not really about that. It's about some kind of political thing that's going on.
Mm-hmm. When you started it, you said too, like, I'm talking about my lived experience, like as a woman. I'm not saying that men didn't endure these things, but I'm speaking from my perception. And it's interesting that, like, in this conversation, we can easily do that. But from a political standpoint, it's almost like, I want to deny the stories of other people if I'm not able to relate to them. And so it just is very interesting as how do we counter something like that? Some of the stories are going to be very uncomfortable, right? Like, funny story about Joy is I have German in my background. Well, Germany has a, funny reputation. They've done some things, right? Like, and whether me as a Black woman, that's not the first thing you think of. Like, I didn't even know. I was talking to my great grandmother one day, and she was like, I thought her mother was indigenous, and she was like, she was actually German and indigenous, and we have German in our lineage. And I was like, oh, okay, that was something you didn't know. but I can't erase the history of what happened in Germany there. And again, I don't know what side we were on. My great grandmother just told me that was our lineage. But at the end of the day, it's just so interesting that so many people aren't just willing to say, hey, I honor your experience. There you go. Yeah. I honor your experience. I don't know what it's like. I'm a heterosexual Black woman, right? I don't know. I have a trans daughter. I don't know what her journey is. Like, I can't, and I'm gonna be honest, my generation is very different. So I grew up in a time where, when pronouns and things, I have to ask questions and also just ask for grace if I get it wrong. Yeah. To explain
Absolutely.
To me. Yeah.
And I think that's part of the problem today too, is that some people are afraid to talk because they're afraid they're going to make a mistake. And we got to get past that somehow, to say that even if you mess up, that as long as the intent is to understand, which that's, people that are in this to talk about the challenges we have and have these conversations, they are seeking to understand, that you got to give some grace as people try to learn how to have that conversation authentically. Because otherwise, if you're just, really polite and you don't really seek to understand authentically, you just kind of gloss over it. And that's not going to advance us, I don't think.
So let's go there. We like to go there on the show, don't we?
Yeah.
I think that's important. You bring up a good point, and I talk about this often, and that is, we have to talk about it, and we have to have that courage to talk about it. So for our listeners, talk to us about how you do that as a leader in your spaces, in your world. And what do I mean by that, Lori? When you're at a cocktail party full of wealthy donors, or you're at a Christmas party with your family and friends, and you hear something or you learn of something that is probably inappropriate or not factually correct, that under normal circumstances might create tension if you talk about it. How do you manage that in your world?
Kind of depends. Depends on the situation. It depends on the context and the intent. There's sometimes, and I can say this from my personal perspective. I had a board member who, not from here, but from my previous, that many people perceived was a male chauvinist because he would say inappropriate things. And I knew he was not. I mean, I knew that he did say these things that would appear that way, but I knew that's not what his heart was or his intent was. He's just older. And so he hadn't learned that was not the way you would talk about things. So I try to do that, because if you react at the moment, you lose the moment. If you can listen and then try to understand, like, what is their perspective and why did they think that? And can I respond in a way that they're able to receive it? Because sometimes you can. And sometimes it's not in a situation that you can and that they can receive it. So if it's going to embarrass someone, that doesn't put them into a place where they can receive that, that feedback. If it's not in that situation, and sometimes I can, then I do. I never want to create more divide. I always want to seek to understand and to bring people together.
Boy, how's that sound, Mr. Ford? Did you hear those two?
Seek to understand, listen to understand.
One of the things that we do, you mentioned two things. One is that seek to understand context as well. And also, we've talked about this. You and Joy have just mentioned that lived experience. And what we try to do as facilitators in this space, when we're trying to advance and champion DEI&B, is that and this is the most difficult part, how do we come to that space of understanding and level of neutrality in those situations? Because it's easy to trigger. I can tell you what Anthony would have done 20 years ago if I was in a room and I heard something inappropriate. I know what the 19-year and 20-year-old uninformed Anthony would have done, just what you said. I would have made the divide worse. I probably would blow up in the room and call that person out. But now I try to remember, and I think about my father-in-law a lot. I'm in a biracial marriage and my father-in-law is white. And I think about some of the comments he's made. And again, the 20-year-old would have just wanted to snap on my father-in-law, but I know he comes from a place that he doesn't know. This is how he was conditioned to speak when he says words like colored, and doesn't understand the context behind that. I've had to teach him over the years. And I just know that, seeking to understand matters, and that's what we value at Top Rank. So glad to hear that you think that way as well.
Oh, Anthony, if you would have talked to me 20 years ago, you would have had a different version of Lori, right?
Let's talk about that. What's that? What was Lori like 20? That's transition. We all grow.
You're right. Like 20 years ago, Lori would have reacted in a way and said something that it wouldn't have advanced the conversation. I can remember several things that happened to me in my career that were gender related, that I called people right out on it, and did so in a way that didn't advance the conversation. And so I've learned over the years, if I really want to make a difference, if that's what I'm really trying to do, I cannot react. I have to seek to understand. Otherwise, if all I'm trying to do is be right and to point out how right I am, that isn't going to get us to move forward. And so I have learned a lot over the years.
Sure.
That's maturity, right? Like that whole, when I was younger too, I was definitely a person that was like, I am talking to be right. And I am going to, however I can come out of this conversation, that I am right. And that clearly from my facts and from the everything, the tone of my voice, everything is going to let you know at the end that I was right. Right. And so as you grow though, it's like, are you really seeking more to be right, or do you want to be understood? And are you trying to have some transformation and connection with the person? Because that's a whole different approach than just, here are my facts, here's everything that's right, and you are wrong. And how can your perspective then implementing grace into the conversation, implementing understanding into the conversation, and implementing like, okay, I'm trying to understand where you're coming from, right? And that, not that I don't struggle with that sometimes still.
Yeah.
I was thinking, I'm waiting to catch up to you all, apparently, according to my youngest boy.
I want to
so
be right, and I want you to feel bad that you were wrong.
Exactly.
Right?
According to my youngest son, I'm still working on that. So
Exactly.
No, as a facilitator, it's
that gets us nowhere.
no.
Right?
It does.
So I can go back home and I can feel better that I was right, when I said something.
right.
But it doesn't advance the real conversation, which is what we have.
Yeah.
And it doesn't allow me to understand that person's perspective. Like, why do they think that way? And what is their experience? And so if I can understand that, a lot of times that helps me understand why they view things that way.
Yeah.
One issue I've seen, and it's even hard for me, like when you said, missing the kids, I know Joy and I were thinking, we both military vets. So I can relate to that. But I think people don't understand they can relate to something and still not understand. So like I'm not a woman, so your experience is different than even mine. And I think that a lot of people get locked up on that where you hear it. I understand. Well, no, you really don't. So maybe could you expound on that a little bit?
It's like someone who has, gone through some type of like cancer diagnosis. I mean, I can empathize with that and I can say, oh, I understand. But, I don't, because I haven't gone through that. I know what it feels like to support someone who has gone through it. But that's as close as I get to it. And so I think that's the issue. And that's one thing that I've learned over the years is that people come from things from like, a million different perspectives. And if I can figure out what the perspective is, sometimes then I can really have a good conversation.
Yeah. My dream, Lori, is to sit down with a Ku Klux Klan member and figure out how that Ku Klux Klan member thinks. My ultimate goal would be, how could I change the mindset of a Ku Klux Klan member? I'm using that loosely here. I'm talking about.
I was going to say, that's your dream, Anthony.
I'm using that.
Lots of dreams.
I'm in space.
I'm using. I know I had to back up, make sure y'all understand, listeners.
Okay.
I'm using that
Give
word
us some
loosely.
context. Okay.
Using that word loosely. I would. How can I change the mindset of people who think so negatively about another group of people? How do I penetrate that mindset? How do I have the patience to listen? And how do I impact change through my conversation? I don't know. That's one of the hardest things ever. So dream, maybe not a dream, but I think how are there opportunities to talk to people who don't think like you? That's the extreme. That's the extreme example, of course. But I want to be able to be good at that.
And there's really an art to that. There's an art to, and I think it comes from being authentic. If it's contrived, I think people sense that. But I think if it's authentic and you really are seeking to understand, I think that's felt somehow, and it can allow that to happen.
Let me ask you this though, Lori. Do you believe, or Nick or Joy, there's lines that can't be crossed? There's conversation, and then there's just some things that that's just not up for discussion. How do you feel about that, Lori? I guess, or any of you? When we're having conversations about difficult situations, there are some truths, there are some facts that you just can't dispute or argue with.
Well, I would just add in, I feel hopeful that anyone can change, but I also know that that's not true. That's kind of the way I look at it, right? Like some people, you can have a discussion till you're blue in the face. You're not going to change their mind, even if you show them every fact humanly possible to counter it. And that's where I was leaving my next question too. As a liberal arts institution, there's always that liberal mentality out there in colleges and universities. I haven't seen it personally. So it's kind of the same thing maybe to Lori. Like where's your line? Is that kind of what you're getting to, Anthony? Like where, or have you had an experience where like, there's just no longer, you just can't do it? I mean.
Yeah. I think my line is, there's freedom of speech, right? And whether what some people want to say, whether I want to hear it, whether others want to hear it, I think that there's hate speech, of course, but our country's built on the freedom to say even very stupid things. And so, we had a situation here with an adjunct who had made some, derogatory remarks on Facebook, and we of course knew about it, and he had a right to say those things, but then the TV station found out about it, and they aired it, and it created this firestorm between the right and the left, and I didn't feel like I could protect him or the students in his class, and so we removed him from the classroom. And I didn't know that you could do this, but I made the right mad and I made the left mad. And I didn't know that you could make both sides mad, but I did, because I did not condemn his speech. And so the right was mad, because I believe in freedom of speech. That doesn't mean I like what he said, but he has a right to say it. That's what our country's built on. And I made the left mad because I removed him from the classroom. But it was about safety. And so, it's hard for me to say like exactly where a line is, because until you're faced with it, you don't know. But I knew with that situation where my line was.
Yep. Yeah, I think we all had those experiences where, at some point, either in a conversation or in the context of what we see or learn, there has to be, at least in my opinion, there are some some lines that have to be crossed. And in our space as facilitators, sometimes we like to call it challenge or put on your teacher hat, because there's a point where you need to listen, but there's also a point where you need to teach facts. And so we're always cognizant of that. So
one of my mentors says that if nobody's mad at you, you're not doing your job. I'm like, oh, wow. Gee, thanks.
Yeah, I've been told that too. And I hate that. But, so oftentimes it can be true, because you have to take hard stands, and you're going to make somebody mad along the way. I mean, if you can make both the right and the left mad, the conservatives and the liberals mad at the same time, I used to say, I guess I did something right. I made everybody mad.
Yeah, awesome.
Exactly.
They can't say you were partial one way or the other.
No, I was not. I mean, I really was trying to make a decision based upon the situation facing me at that time. And so I had to sort through, Anthony, just what you said. Where's the line? And what does that line mean in terms of safety? Because sometimes the line does have a safety component to it.
Absolutely. Well, do we have a listener question today? And what do we have a listener question? Did we get a question from a listener?
I thought we were going to get one. I thought I was going to get one earlier, but the person didn't answer back, unfortunately. Someone in the community college.
I had one
industry.
earlier when they learned that we were going to have you on. Someone asked me earlier, just because with the current state of education and where it's going, and you are looking at retirement, they were like, what is something that you did as an educational leader that you would say, oh yeah, this is something I want to leave with my younger self? And then what is something leaving with your younger self that you would say, hey, you know what? Don't do that again.
Good question from our listener.
Not do again.
That's a great question.
Oh gosh, all kinds of things. What? I don't know. Like for me, commencement is the day of the year that reminds me why I do what I do, because you see the families in the audience and you see how proud they are of their graduates, and you know that the Kirkwood has made a difference in people's lives. And it's like that kind of gets me through the whole next year, and all the challenges we face, because that's what we do. And I know, Anthony, you have a particular experience with Kirkwood, with your mom, and it just, Kirkwood changes lives. And it's pretty special. And I feel on commencement day, I mean, I stand there with all kinds of privilege, feeling like what an opportunity I have to be the president here and to be a part of all of that.
Sure.
So I have a unique question here. When I was doing some research a while back, I found out that Kirkwood Community College is actually the biggest high school in the state. Now, this was a few years ago. I'm not sure if it's still the case.
Biggest high school?
Biggest high school. That a lot of kids getting there. This is before they changed the rules, like getting GEDs and the program out there. And I just found that really interesting. There's so much that community colleges do that people always think it's just a 2-year college, and it's really not. And it's like, it's amazing.
We also do concurrent enrollment.
Yes.
Yes, that's probably why.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so for those students who are taking high school credit, they can also get college credit. And so that's increasingly something that we're doing that, it makes an impact on students. And I talk to parents about it. It reduces, because it's free. I mean, it is free. You can get college credit and the family pays nothing. So if you have a student that wants a bachelor's degree, why would you not do as much dual credit as you can? And then when the student graduates from high school, they only have probably 2 years left of college that you have to pay for. And so I keep saying, you have to do general education requirements somewhere. You might as well do them with us. We have small class sizes. It's the same as going to a private college in terms of the student to faculty ratio. Most of our faculty have PhDs. So I think it's just something that every family should consider in terms of the total reduction a bachelor's degree costs.
It's like we did for our audience. We did not rehearse this, but it's like she went. It was a poorly worded question, but she took it right where I wanted to go. Because when you think about from a diversity lens, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging lens, a lot of the barriers for legacy families becoming like you and I, first time college students, is economic. And I think people don't look at that as there are ways to do it that are still within reason economically, and yet still get to that end goal. And then, I think you mentioned the same thing. I'm the first time in my family, but every one of my kids have gone now, and all my nieces and nephews are going, and you start seeing that. And then you look at communities that don't have those assets. It's just, I think it's a great avenue. And so that was really where my question was leading, is, where does the community college role play into the DEI&B side of things? So.
I mean, look at that. You're the classic example. In one generation, your family, changed from non-college going to college going. And I would say in 20 or 30 years, you're going to look back and you're going to see the difference higher education made in your family's, long-term viability and success.
Well, Lori, I know we could talk all day. I know we're getting near the end. I do have one more question before we wrap up, though. And
okay.
Because you're retiring, you're about to go fishing or do whatever you do, or hang out with grandkids
By a lake.
As we think about this diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging space and our desire to champion it, if there's one or two initiatives that you are most proud of, and I think you've been with Kirkwood 4 years? Mm-hmm. There's one or two nuggets that you're most proud of as it relates to DEI&B, what would they be under your watch?
I'm really proud of what we've done with DEI. And so, and I can't take the credit for it. When we were thinking about diversity, equity, inclusion, it has many facets at a college or university. So you have the hiring component, right? So you want to have faculty and staff who are diversified. You also want in the classroom, the experience of a student in the classroom, that things like the readings that they have for that week include readings from, diverse scholars. You want people to feel welcomed in the classroom, that they feel like, I can relate. And then you also want advisors who, because that's the next direct link for our students to get connected. And you want them to be diverse. And so it's like this 3-pronged approach that we had. And so typically what institutions will do, they'll hire like one person, this is our diversity officer, and then, we didn't go that direction. So what we have faculty diverse scholars who have made the last 12 to 18 months researching how to create classroom experiences that value a diverse amount of opinions. And then they're training other faculty. Like, this is how you do it. So that when I go into a class and I'm a Black female, I get to read authors that are Black female authors. And then I can see the scholarship with someone like me. And so that's part of it. And then we have hired people on the HR side, obviously, to begin to make sure that we are hiring diverse people. And then we also have what we call our equity success coaches. And these are coaches specifically designed to work with students of color to ensure that they are successful, because we enroll more minority students than our district represents. We're like number 2 in the state, but they don't complete at the same rate as our white students. That's a problem for us. That's a gap. And so we have hired equity coaches for students of color that their main job is to make that student feel welcomed, make sure they feel that they belong, and that they can succeed at the same rates.
Where did you get that model from? That's an interesting. I'm a board member, and I must have missed that. I don't remember that one. The success coach.
Yeah.
I think I remember the success coaches, but I might have missed that component.
That's really neat.
I tell you what, it resulted from several different people on the cabinet. So my VP for Student Services, John Boozy, Wes Fowler, over my VP of
Wes.
HR, and then my Vice President of Academic Affairs, Jennifer Bradley, just kind of talking about, rather than talking about this position is what we just need to hire, which was kind of like my mindset. Like, we just need to hire someone, right, that knows this work. And they're like, well, let's wait. Let's talk about what do we need? And it needs to be across the entire institution and all these different facets. Why don't we get that first and try to make a difference and understand where we can get some gains before we just hire someone. And so it really came from having conversations about, okay, so what's the challenge? How do we want to get after it? What resources do we need to do it? And so I don't think other places are doing it quite this way. And I can't say that this would work for every college. What I'm saying is it works for us. It has been working for us.
I commend you for that. And I'll say, because one of the things that you said, we talk about all the time, Nick and Joanna and others in this space, but oftentimes organizations, be it academic institutions or corporations, will hire the diversity person. Let's just hire, right? That solves the answer. Let's just hire. Yeah. So they're either trying to hire minority staff or they're trying to hire this DEI leader, and don't give them any resources and assume that solves the problem. And they set them in a corner with no budget, no team, and no voice from the people that they're supposed to lead. So I'm really glad to hear that Kirkwood's doing that, because we don't hear that often.
Yeah. Pretty cool. It really is. Our faculty diverse fellows they're proud to be part of that, and they've taken it very seriously. They're working with faculty in the classrooms to make sure that students have that sense of belonging. Our Iowa Hall that was recently renovated was designed entirely to create a sense of belonging, because what we know is that if we can connect with students and they feel like they belong at Kirkwood, they will complete. It just takes one person to make that connection with them. And so that the Iowa Hall renovation was done entirely to create that sense for people. And then, of course, HR, and that's kind of a standard thing. But I feel like this model is working for us. And it really came just through conversation. And I don't know there's a model like
Lori,
it.
I was searching. You probably, Maurice texted me. You could hear some of my typing, because I was like, dude, I haven't heard of another community college doing that. That was what I was typing and looking at, actually. And I was just like, wow, because it's almost like a K-12 model. Because K-12, they do that more in K-12. Mm-hmm. But those of us who are on the ground working with students that transition from a high school to college, we know oftentimes they aren't ready, and that they do need more hands-on support, especially if I'm coming from, maybe I'm a first gen student, maybe I don't have other people that went to college in my family or around me, then they do need those higher levels of support. So that's what I was like trying to look at, like, that's pretty groundbreaking. I like that a lot. And I was like, I haven't seen that anywhere else. I know we do it in K-12, and I know people have talked about that model, but the fact that you've already implemented that model and been doing it for several years is really, really, we commend that. That's an awesome step.
Well, and we talked before the show. I mean, my experience going out there as a veteran, you had that set up for veterans.
We do.
So, I mean, or you see, like when my kids all swam in college, the athletes all have that. It's just expounding on it, seems like, but in a really unique way. And it's kind of neat because, like Anthony said, we're a big proponent of hiring someone to be kind of own DEI as well. But wow, when you guys get to that point out there, it's set up for success.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Instead of for failure. And it's really neat.
We have TRIO programs here. And that's one thing that I'm proud of, that since we've been here. So I'm first gen. TRIO programs are for first gen and low income students. And we had one program when I was here. We have 5 now.
Wow.
And I know they're competitive grants. They're hard to get. And our grant writer, Doris Nyanga, she's fantastic. And it's been a push because those are the resources. You need extra resources to reach that population and to support them. And you're right, our athletes do really well, but it's because they have that support. Our veterans do pretty well because they have that support. So it just makes sense we would have equity coaches too, because we have TRIO. And so it's really trying to provide the support when it's needed, and to get that student to feel like they can see themselves as a college student. Because sometimes the family that you grew up in, you don't see yourself as being able to be successful in college. And there's a whole other language we speak in higher ed that when I first got to college, I'm like, what are they talking about?
Right, exactly.
Language, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Syllabi and what does all this mean? And so first gen, that it's tough. So yeah. So yeah, there's some things I am very proud of because we have expanded services for a diverse group of students and learners, and I am proud of that.
You should be proud.
Lori, has any legislation, though, the way that you've written that into positions, the legislation probably doesn't impact that because of the way that it's kind of been written into certain roles, right? I'm imagining.
Yeah, no, we don't have any problem with any legislation right now.
That's good.
Yeah.
Keep plowing forward.
I know they said right now.
Right now, right?
Well, Lori, as we wrap up the show, we always like to give our guests the floor, the stage, and we want to make sure that if there's as we think about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and in the show, is there anything you would like our listeners to know from you? Any nuggets of advice or commentary you can share that would inspire our listeners to continue to champion DEI&B forward?
In addition to all the ones you've already dropped.
Yes.
Yeah. Keep listening authentically and seek to understand people and offer some grace as people learn. Because even when you were talking about pronouns, sometimes I'm like, am I going to say the wrong thing? And because that isn't an experience I've had. And it's relatively, new too. And so I always want to make sure that I'm not, making someone feel uncomfortable. And so I think that's the key is to be authentic about it and to own it. If you are afraid and you really, your intent is to learn, to say that, so that the person can help you learn.
Seek to understand, own it,
Authentically listen.
authentically listen. She's dropping dimes, people.
She's been reading our website.
She's dropping dimes, people.
Around here, I always own it. So like when I mess up, I own it,
Yeah.
and I just say I'm sorry.
That diffuses so much. If people just would say,
I'm
"Hey,
sorry, I just did some grace." And so if somebody else makes a mistake and they say, "I'm owning it," I'm sorry. I'm like, okay, we're good.
okay,
It's
we're
all I
good."
need to know, right? That you understand that you messed up and you're sorry, and then we're going to go forward because it's all about having some grace.
Definitely. Well, thank you for your time. I know Joy's going to take us out. We really appreciate
you doing the good work.
Thank you. Joy, you're going to take us out here?
Joy, it was a pleasure to meet you, Nick.
It was definitely a pleasure. Congratulations. Hopefully I will see you around in sunny South Carolina sometime.
I would love to see you.
Yeah, definitely. Congrats. I'll come visit you on your lake because that's
what I'm thinking.
I'll take you out on the lake. We'll have a little boat run.
I love that. Thank you so much, Lori.
All right.
Well,
thanks, Anthony.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, we drop episodes twice per month on your favorite audio platforms and YouTube. Search Breaking Barriers DEI&B podcast. And thanks again for listening. We hope you take whatever you heard with you on your journey to change hearts and minds when it comes to DEI&B. Until next time, break some barriers.
Yep.
Yes.
Big shout out to our 5-star presenting sponsor, Kirkwood Community College. We appreciate your partnership on this podcast. Big love to you there. Also, big thanks to our silver diversity sponsor, PG Cares. Also want to give thanks to our friends at Breaking Barrier Supporters Community Savings Bank and Tyler, Lincoln, Barnes DDS. We'd love to hear from you. Hit us up. Send your questions, comments, suggestions to info@toprankedtalentsolutions.com.
Thank you for your time, Lori. Enjoy retirement and save a fishing pole for me out there.
Definitely.
Guys.
Take care.
Thanks, Lori.
Advancing equity is not a one-year project. It's a generational commitment. there are too few people in the world willing to be the domino, too few people willing to take that fall.